Before we begin today's episode, we want to warn you that it includes a personal account from Vanessa about her experiences with violent domestic abuse. While we share her story with the intention of offering support and understanding to those in similar situations, we recognise that the content may be distressing for some listeners, especially those who have experienced domestic abuse. If you find this topic triggering, please feel free to skip this episode or listen with care. For anyone currently facing domestic abuse, or if you know someone who is, support is available 24/7 through the National Domestic Abuse Helpline at 0808 2000 247. Remember, you are not alone and help is out there. Thank you for your understanding and joining us on this journey of awareness and support.
Black women, we get 0.02% of VC investment.
0.02?
Yeah, women get 2%. So as a black woman, I am doing the impossible. I've had investors say, excuse me, I need to talk business to somebody else.
London Business School named you as one of 30 people changing the world.
I didn't realise how much my life was in danger. It was every weekend I was just getting beaten up. They start to isolate you from your family, telling you that you're ugly, nobody will want you. He does love me, or he's sorry, or he doesn't really mean it, he's got issues. Let me be there for him. So you kind of go back. The one time that I left was...
A duty of care for thousands of lives can make it hard to get a real and true break. Now I'll see you up on the hill where the girls talk with a collective power that I'm sure will make the earth shake.
Because I've been through so much as a woman, I want to make sure that I can make a difference and just help women have more confidence. When you have more confidence, socially, economically, you're just going to thrive. You have to motivate yourself. Entrepreneurship really makes you dig deep into places that you never knew you could. The only difference between those who succeed and those who don't is that those who do, they never gave up.
Greetings, I'm Ashley Samuels Mackenzie.
And I'm Charles Parkinson.
And welcome to How I Became,
where we unveil the unscripted journeys of inspirational figures.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Sanyauke, and this is how I became the CEO and founder of Girls Talk and the Hill app.
If you enjoy the show, could you do one thing? Subscribe. Wherever you are, just click the subscribe or follow button. That simple act can help us grow the podcast in a big way. And we need your support to do it. And if you really want to help play a part in our growth, rate us on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world. Thank you. A descendant from Zimbabwe, where respect for elders is key, to starting life in North London, then moving to Essex, where she experienced a bout of bullying difficulties. Being a strong career woman and business founder can come with its own challenges. To a conventional relationship, where potential partners may experience insecurities by power imbalances. While building her new business, realizing she was experiencing more than stress, she was diagnosed with anxiety. Despite that, she's now at the helm of organizations that benefit black women to excel in their careers and in society. She worked in banking and government and now empowering women globally. Welcoming founder and CEO of Girl Talk and the Hill, Vanessa Sanyauke.
Oh, that was so lovely. I love that.
Welcome.
Thank you.
There we go. That's your life in a poem.
I know, it's quite emotional when I was listening to it. So yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Well, let's dive into your version of your life, your story. Yeah. This is how you became founder and CEO of Girls Talk and the Hill. You were named by the Sunday Times Style magazine as one of 10 people changing the workplace for women in the UK.
Yeah.
Accolades.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't stop. There are many, and I'm just going to do a couple here.
Okay.
London Business School named you as one of 30 people changing the world.
Yeah.
You do get recognised for being someone who is about change and genuinely is changing the lives of many people. Yeah. And we're going to unpack that story of how you get to that position. And I think this is an amazing story for people who do want their life to have meaning and a purpose and have passions that they want to change.
Yeah.
And how to get out of the life they're living to do that and to bring that into existence. So that's really the story we're telling today. Tell us, for anybody who doesn't know, in a short summary, what is Girls Talk?
Short summary. So Girls Talk, we've got a community of now 56,000 women. And what we do is we connect them to jobs and opportunities and global businesses. So we run different events and programs that essentially help women get into the workplace.
And not just with any brands. I'm going to name a few you've partnered with. Amazon, Apple, Meta, Snap, LinkedIn, Goldman Sachs, PwC, HSBC, Virgin Media, O2, BT, Vodafone, BlackRock, Salesforce.
You almost went out of breath.
I know, it's quite a few.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You've got the Black Girls in Finance Summit.
Yeah, we just launched that in September.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then before that, there's another tech summit you do?
Black Girls Tech Summit. So we've been doing that for 5 years. It's one of the largest summits for Black women in the world. Yeah.
I guess if people are listening, watching now and like, this sounds amazing, how can I find out? Where can they go?
Yeah, so they can go to girlstalklondon.com or blackgirlstechsummit.com has got its own website as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But Vanessa was not satisfied with that. So there was more she had to do in this world. What is The Hill?
The Hill is my new baby. And I think when this episode drops, I think it would have just launched in mobile, in iOS and Android. And essentially The Hill is really like how Girls Talk is leveraging tech to scale and have a bigger impact. So we're a platform, and what we do is we help and actually enable global companies to actually save on cost and time via hiring female talent. So it's sort of like a female LinkedIn. Women can have a profile and they can showcase their skills and talents. And then companies also have a company page and they can advertise jobs. And then the idea is companies make the first move, like a Bumble for workplace, and they can invite women to have a one-to-one meeting or apply for a job.
Very cool.
So that's The Hill. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, we'll make sure when this comes out, people can. So go now and search The Hill.
Thehillapp.com. They can download it from there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the story. Let's go back where it all begins. Highbury Hill.
Yeah.
Paint
my
the
hometown.
picture of the life you're born into. Tell us about your parents, any siblings. Where does it all begin?
Yeah, that was one of my happiest times.
Really?
Yeah. And sometimes when I'm feeling a bit down, I will actually go to Highbury Hill. It was 3 Highbury Hill and just reminisce. It was just the best time ever of my life.
Why?
I just felt like there was a vibe in North London at that time. It was the 80s. And it was just so vibrant. London was so vibrant. And I remember just in our house, we had it was a 1.5 bedroom, but literally there was loads of my cousins. I've got me and my brother. He's younger. So he was born in 1990. I was 1987. But our house was just full of our cousins and aunties and uncles. And it was just loads of us in a tiny space, but it was just the most fun. And so my parents came to the UK from Zimbabwe as immigrants. So they came in the 70s.
How old were they when they came?
My mum was 16 and my dad was about 23.
Okay, so both
in
young.
his early 20s. Yeah, so they were very, very young. But they were running away from apartheid. So in Zimbabwe and also South Africa, they grew up in apartheid. So essentially where blacks and whites were separate. They would live separately. And blacks were kind of seen as lower class. So they weren't allowed to eat in certain places. They didn't really have good jobs. And they just basically just were running away from that to have a brighter future. And they I think my mum ended up getting a place to study nursing in Liverpool. My dad went to university in Cardiff to study civil engineering. And then they finished their studies and then moved to North London, and then I was born shortly after. Yeah.
What were the positive impacts of the Zimbabwe culture that maybe they blessed you with?
There's a lot, I think, and this is quite typical with immigrant families. It was education is so important, but they were very strict. So I think they were less strict on my brother, but for me as a firstborn, it was you've got 3 career choices: doctor, lawyer, or accountant. Pick one. And that's it. So very, very strict. Education is so important. It was just expected you're going to university, you've got to make sure you get good grades. You know, getting a B was just not acceptable. It was A's and that's it.
Wow.
And because my dad is a civil engineer, he was just obsessed with maths. So if I came back with a B, he was just like, this is just embarrassing. So that's how, you know, I grew up in terms of education. But also, family is really important. So that kind of family is everything. That closeness, the respect for elders, being there for your family was a really big and strong value of theirs. Like, you should always help your family and do what you can. So they were always helping bring people over to study and advising them how to kind of go about it, how to settle in the UK, driving them to university and bringing their kind of like their siblings' kids over here to study and have a better life. So they were always giving and helping others. And I think that's probably, I do that for my my business now. And I think actually talking about this, I think that's where I got it from. Seeing my parents just helping the younger generation, that's where I got it from. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. And Zimbabwe is a beautiful country with 5, I think, UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
Yes. Yeah.
It's an incredible place.
It is. It's the most stunning place. Great, I guess, in terms of the culture, but just the beauty, the heritage, as you said, it's just amazing. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you don't get to spend long in this great memories time of your life. 5, how old were you when you moved?
Maybe 6 or 7. We moved to Essex. Yeah, so we moved to Chadwell Heath, which is near Dagenham. Yeah.
How did that go?
I hated those years.
Why?
So I moved from North London, very diverse. It was loads of blacks, Asians, everyone mixing together, whites. And then I moved to Dagenham. Well, Dagenham, my school was in Dagenham, but I lived in Chadwell Heath. And that was very much NF, white working class background or area. So, you know, being a black family, moving into that area, and also in school, I went from, you know, most of my classmates, we were all different, you know, races and from different, you know, countries, to being in Dagenham, and maybe there's 1 or 2 of us like in my year, and then maybe like a couple in the school. So there was a lot of racism, a lot of bullying, just not fitting in. You just felt like an outsider as well. So that was quite tough. Yeah.
How long did you have to spend in that environment? Did you get to move away from that, or that was until university?
Yeah, and then my parents decided to move me to an even more, I suppose, whiter area. So we went into deeper Essex. Wow. So I moved at 10 to South Ockington, which is near Upminster, but I have to say, they were more, it was very mainly white, but they weren't racist. It was just like, okay, it was me and my best friend today. We actually met in primary school because she was the only black girl, and then I came and she was like, oh my gosh, and we're still best friends to this day. So it was 2 of us in, I think, the whole school, and my brother. So it's 3 of us, 3 black kids in the whole school, but they never made us feel like the others. I didn't experience any racism. I went to Holy Cross primary school because my mum, I did like maybe sort of 6 months of primary school and then went to secondary school in Essex, and that was fine. It wasn't like, you didn't feel like an other. Yeah.
If you could go back in time now and speak to yourself back then and share some words, what would you say to yourself when you were going through those difficult bullying and racism?
Just affirm myself and just say, you are a beautiful young girl. There's nothing wrong with you. They are ignorant. You know, being black and Zimbabwean is great. And that's what I would say. And just to try and your best to not listen to them, because hate comes from fear, and they're just scared. They're scared of you, that you're different. They're intimidated, and you're just a great child. That's what I would say.
Yeah, powerful words.
Thank you.
Reminds me of my lower school, where I was one of maybe 3 or 4 as well.
Okay, yeah.
And it got to a point when name calling started again, just from difference. I wasn't as unfortunate to be growing up in like a place that was steeped in the kind of racism that you were at in that second school, but it got to a point where I just thought, I'm not having this anymore. I stood up for myself, and then everything kind of neutralized from that point.
Yeah.
And it kind of taught me an early lesson of having your own back sometimes can help, because then you get the confidence and you know that you can affect changes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
We talked about before this interview about something I think maybe a lot of people will be able to relate to. What would you say is the vision of relationships that women are taught when they're younger or at some point in their lives, and how has that played out for you? How's it been different?
I think relationships are very tricky. Because my parents are divorced now, so I never had a great example of what a loving relationship is supposed to be. So I think when I was growing up, I just didn't know. I didn't know what was healthy, what was not. And then I saw like my mum, she was the breadwinner of the relationship as well. So I've kind of always been around that dynamic of the woman, you know, earns the most, you have to work for yourself and you can't depend on a man. That's how I was kind of raised, because some men will disappoint you and you've got to pay your bills, you've got to survive. So I never looked at a man to be my, I guess, meal ticket. It was, I'm going to be my own meal ticket. And I didn't know what a healthy dynamic was in the home.
And when you were younger, 16 years old, you had a very difficult relationship. What happened there?
Yeah, so when I was between 16 to 18, I was in a physically abusive relationship, for 2 years. Yeah, with my first boyfriend at the time.
And what were you experiencing at the time?
So with my boyfriend at the time, a lot of violence. So I didn't actually realize at the time how bad it was until very recently. So I've only kind of spoken about that experience very recently. So my parents didn't know until I haven't even told my dad to this day. I don't know if he knows or not. I recorded an episode of my podcast, and I shared that I had. So my mum had listened to it, but my dad's not very technical, so I have no idea if he knows. But at the time, my parents didn't know, so it was quite bad. It was every weekend I was just getting beaten up. So physically punched, strangled, glass thrown on my head, sexually assaulted for like every single week or every weekend that I was with this person. And what they do is they start to like isolate you from your family and your friends. I wasn't allowed to have male friends. I wasn't allowed to like talk to like any of my classmates. So I remember like when I was at sixth form, I went to a boys' school. So a lot of my classmates were boys, and if I had been texting them about like homework, I'd get beaten up. But they did this like in their home or sometimes in my home. So my mum would work nights, and so my dad wasn't always around for various reasons, and so that's where it got I guess missed. But it was really, really, really kind of like controlling, coercion, and just like playing on your self-esteem. So telling you that you're ugly, nobody will want you, all of those kind of things to really bring you down. Yeah.
And so, I mean, listening to this, and I'm sure other people will feel the same, you're thinking, why don't you leave, end the relationship, get out, like stop seeing this person? Why didn't you do that?
That's a good question. And it's so hard because I do a lot of work with survivors, and that's the number one question. You don't know. You can't really put it into words. There's so many reasons why so many women don't. So on average, I think it takes women 35 times they leave their abuser 35 times before they actually leave. So there were times when I wouldn't talk to him, but I think, but you just end up going back.
Why'd you end up going back? What do you think?
Because they break you down, so they isolate you. So you're not talking to your friends. You don't have any male friends. You don't, and I wasn't talking to my mom or my dad because they kind of make you feel like, oh, they're just against you. So they isolate you from everybody. So you feel like I haven't got anyone. They're the closest person to you. They understand you. And when you're 16, you do have quite low self-esteem. If you're not affirmed at that age, you just think, oh, this is, you know, he does love me, or he's sorry, or he doesn't really mean it, he's got issues, let me be there for him. So you kind of go back. You go back a few times. The one time that I left was, actually he broke up with me. He was seeing somebody else. But then he also said that he had, I don't know if he was planning to kill me, but he said that he had a dream that he was digging my grave, and that he had killed me. And so that's when I kind of, at the same time that he told me that, and this is why I feel like the universe really saves your life. I was supposed to do medicine at Queen Mary's. I missed out on my grade. If I had gone to Queen Mary's, I would have stayed at home and he would have continued to abuse me. So I had to find a place for clearing very, very quickly. I've got a place at Brunel, which was 2 hours away from Essex. And I moved very, very quickly. And then I moved, and then I just I managed to kind of like lose contact with him. Wow. And then I met my boyfriend at uni very soon after. And he had kind of heard about everything, and he kind of had just shielded me, and that was it.
So he knew what you'd just been through?
Yeah. And so in a way, he had kind of, because my boyfriend at the time, well, we were kind of off and on. So then I went to uni, and I kind of got far away from him, as I wasn't able to see him every weekend. And then I met my boyfriend at uni, who was my friend first. And then you kind of just start to realize, actually, there are guys that are not abusive. What's happening to you is wrong. And then I was able to eventually just move away from him. Yeah.
And what would you say to a young Vanessa if you could go back?
I would say, you know, try and tell someone. I didn't tell anyone. I had one friend, but she didn't even know to the extent. So my friend Kasha, we went to Dartford Grammar together, because one time he threw my phone and broke it, and then she kind of asked, well, what happened? And I had to tell her, and she was like, okay, so he's violent. So she had suspected that something was going on, but I didn't tell anyone. So I would tell my younger self to at least just tell someone, like find help. That's the first stage. And it's
Can I
crazy.
just ask, why do you think at the time you didn't tell anybody?
I was ashamed and embarrassed, you know, and I wanted to kind of protect my boyfriend at the time, because it's like, I don't want anyone to think bad of him.
Even though they're terrible, doing terrible
things, yeah.
You just don't want anybody to know that.
You want to protect the person. So you're like, I don't want him to get in trouble. What if my parents call the police? I don't want him to go and get, you know, arrested. You kind of end up going into protection mode for that person. So that's why. Yeah.
And I guess maybe as the longer it goes on, because this went on for 2 years, the longer it goes on, the more you feel like, probably deep down or subconsciously, if people find out, they're going to be like, why on earth have you put up with this for 2 years? And you don't want to be asked that question, because you know the truth. You just should get out.
But I was too young to know.
Yeah.
So if I'm honest, I didn't know that was wrong.
Right.
I didn't know that was wrong.
You didn't know what he was doing was wrong?
No, I didn't know. I just thought, oh, this is what love is. This is just, we have a different relationship. Because you're not told. So I was 16. I'm a child.
Yeah.
So, and I don't have that healthy dynamic. I've got my parents who are arguing all the time. So I'm like, okay, this is dysfunctional. Like, this is just our dysfunction in a different way. I only have recently realized how bad it was the last couple of years when I've started to talk about it. And I've been speaking to other survivors, and some survivors, even when they were living with their partner, would say, not that it's good, but they'd say, oh, I got beat up maybe a couple of times a year. And then when I was hated them, for me, it was every weekend. There was just this horrific silence. Like, that was just terrible forms of abuse. But I didn't know. I just was 16 thinking, oh, this is normal. This is just like our way of fighting. No idea. Yeah.
Which is why, you know, it's so appreciated that you're willing to share this, because hopefully if there is somebody listening, you know, who may be going through something similar, and who's saying to themselves all the things you were saying, okay, he'll get better, he's not that bad. What would you say to them?
You can die. Like, you know, and that's what I wish someone had told me. Like, I didn't realize recently how much my life was in danger. He planned to kill me. Like, he was basically telling me that he thought he was going to kill me and it was digging a grave for me. And he ended up killing somebody. I don't want to kind of go into it too much, but he ended up killing somebody. And luckily for me, because of the law that Theresa May put in as Home Secretary, he got deported. So after serving his sentence, he's now not living in this country. So if it had not been for Theresa May, I think he would have eventually found me and killed me. So that's how bad it is. So she saved my life, and many other other women's lives, which is, because I stepped down recently, but I used to be on the board of Refuge, which is the largest domestic violence charity. And through my work, just realizing like how bad it is, like you can die. Like I think 2 women a day, or could even be an hour. I can't remember the data, but like every second, every hour, a woman is being like killed from her partner. Like, so I would say to someone listening to this, like these men who are doing this to you can actually kill you. It's not just punch. You could die. And I think that's what I want to get my message across, that it's life-threatening. You need to leave, because eventually, sadly, some of these people, some people have not made it. I know so many women. There was another lady who, the chair of Refuge, is campaigning for her best friend, and we kind of bonded over this. So her best friend's husband said the same thing that my ex said to me, but he ended up killing her and digging a grave for her. And so I survived and she didn't. And so it's really, really, really important that people actually know how serious it is. If you've got someone that is in this kind of relationship, their lives are at risk. It's not just about physical bruising. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. It is, but it's so important to share that message. As you said, it can very easily, someone can understandably tell themselves things that aren't true and not realize the seriousness of the situation. So thank you for sharing your story. I think that's the purpose of it, is to wake people up into making a change, which is what a lot of your life is about. So you eventually wind up at Brunel University.
Yes.
Which is where your discovery of entrepreneurialism comes. Tell us the story there.
Yeah, so Brunel was like just a new world for me. So I'd grown up secondary school, and sixth form was in Essex and Dartford. So still predominantly white areas, one of very few black kids in the school. So I didn't really know, apart from like being a Zimbabwean, I didn't really know any other like black kids or African Caribbean. And Brunel was like, I call it like a HBCU, a UK historically black college, like how they have in the US.
Yeah.
Brunel is like just so multicultural. And so at Brunel, my eyes were opened. I had never seen so many black people my age in one place. And it was amazing. I'd met, Nigerians, Ghanaians, Zambians, Tanzanians, every type of African, and then Trinis, Jamaicans, Beja. It was just so diverse. But what was really cool about Brunel is that it was very entrepreneurial. So I was studying biomedical science, obeying my parents and just doing what they wanted me to do. So I was pursuing a career to become a doctor. But at Brunel, everyone had a side hustle. So they were doing some kind of side business. So I started out doing parties, and like through my own club nights that would coincide with my birthday. So I'd be out, I'd be the only female, I guess, promoter flyering at like 4 a.m. I'd see my uni friends like flyering like in the city of London. So we'd be like maybe an Oxford Circus. We'd go to the city. So back then, a lot of promoters would throw raves like at Agenda, Abacus, Mustard Bar, all of these kind of old bars in the city of London. And I would sometimes go either from uni, or if I was at my parents' house in Essex, like leave at 2 a.m, get there for 3 a.m. and just hand out flyers for like my party. So I just started to see how you could kind of make money outside of your studies. And then that's where I kind of started my first social enterprise. It was called the Rafiki network, and it was mentoring. And so I would get contracts from like housing associations to kind of combat gun and knife crime. And that's when I kind of realized actually you can have a business that has a social purpose and and mix the two.
But how old are you at this time?
I was 20 when I
20
started.
years
my first.
old.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
So where did this idea to do this come from?
So I remember I was at uni and we were having, this was during the time of where in London, gun and knife crime was like every week. You'd hear on the news that some young person has been killed. And I was just talking to my friends at uni and I was just saying to them, look, I think if these young people had role models, they wouldn't go into gangs or be killing each other. And so then I mentioned this idea to one of my friends now, who at the time I just met, and she worked she was a trustee for Unlimited at the time.
What's
and
Unlimited?
So Unlimited is like a funding charity for social entrepreneurs. Okay. And so they give you like your first startup grants. And she said, you should apply to Unlimited and test out your idea. And so I applied for funding at 20 whilst I was at uni, got it. And I set up a mentoring program. So I just literally roped in all my friends who were having those conversations with. And I said, we're going to go to Battersea Park School and pilot this mentoring program and working with youth there.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
What's the lesson for the story?
I think there's one of being in the right environment can spur things on for you that you may never have known were there to start with.
Exactly. If I can say, if I had never gone to Brunel, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Wow.
I would have just done biomedical science. I'd either be a doctor or working in a lab, 1,000%. So, and Brunel was actually, I went into clearing. I wasn't even supposed to go to Brunel. So it was last minute. And so everything happened. Sometimes you think a disaster is a disaster, but actually it sets you up for forever. So, yeah.
Amazing. So I think, a great lesson, whatever age you are, whether you're starting your career or if you're very senior at the moment, if you want to change something in your life or you want to go and if you want to break out of the corporates and create something that changes people's lives, hang around with other people who are doing things to change people's lives. Get around some entrepreneurs, founders, social change people, and
you get inspired.
That's it.
You get inspired.
So you got inspired. What happened next? Where did you go after Brunel?
Finished biomedical science, and then I was studying for the GAMSAT to do graduate medicine. So I'd had my eye on going to St. George's, and then
hospital in Tooting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then during that summer, so the GAMSAT you had to kind of study for a year. So I had that year and then take it, and then you'd have your place the following year. So about 2 years in terms of doing that. So I went back home and I knew I was still doing my social enterprise. So I was still doing my programs. But then I ended up, so my cousin, who also went to Brunel, was like, if you want extra money, he was saying Barclays, they've got loads of temp jobs for like, there'll be like entry level jobs, like as an assistant or an analyst. You should like reach out to my agency just to earn some money. So I started working in the city and studying for the GAMSAT and doing my social enterprise. But it was during studying for the GAMSAT and working that I realised I don't want to do medicine. So
something you've worked for years and years on by now.
Yeah,
and your parents were very happy that you're doing it.
Yeah, so I just decided, no, it's not for me. Like, I don't want to do it. So I told my parents.
Ooh, how did that go?
My mum was a bit more understanding. My dad was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is just ridiculous. What is this fake business? Like, because I had like Companies House letters from the Rafiki network, and he's like, holding it up saying, what is this? This is just nonsense. Like, what is the Rafiki? It was called the Rafiki network. Like, what is this? What are you doing? He wasn't happy at all.
And understandably, he can see this bright future for his daughter.
Exactly.
She studies so hard, done great in exams, got a degree.
And then she wants to set up a business called the Rafiki network to mentor these young kids. He's just like, you're not going to make any money from it. This is just ridiculous. So I had to kind of, basically figure it out. So I was saying to them, actually, I'm still going to do it on the side, but I'm going to just pursue maybe working in the city and figure out what I want to do. And then I did my master's in sustainability and management at Royal Holloway. So that at least I guess I did it in twofold. So kind of upskill myself, but also to show my parents, okay, I'm going to now go into corporate, but on the kind of CSR side.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you can pivot.
Yeah.
But not too much of a pivot outside of kind of that line.
Yeah. So I still got my master's. I'm saying, right, I'm now, because I realized when I was working in the city that they had this at the time, sustainability, ESG was not a thing. So I had sort of figured out that you can help companies do good in the community. So I thought, this is what I want to do. And so I did my master's to kind of bridge the two things together. So my parents were a bit more happier after that. Yeah.
So you spent a few years in a finance sector. You're still there. And where's the origins of Girls Talk? Where does this first idea start from? So
again, I was just doing my thing. I still had Rafiki, but I kind of had done what I wanted to do. So I loved working with young people, but I just wasn't really as passionate about it. So I kind of stopped doing Rafiki Network and I was working for a charity at the time called the Brokerage, which is still going on now, and they're amazing. And they help young people get jobs in the City of London. And then I remember just talking to some of the girls, and I'd say, you know, there's so many great careers in the financial services. I've worked there and it's great, and trying to encourage them. And then they'd say, well, there's no women here. I think I might just go into like health and beauty and something where there's more women. And I just started to think, okay, this is a big problem if I can't even convince young girls that working in the financial services is good for them. And that's where I came up with the idea for Girls Talk. I went to the directors at the time of the charity, and I said, we've got to do something for women, and I want to do stuff for women. And there were two guys, and they were like, oh, the girls. No, we don't want to do anything for the girls. Like, it's not needed. And so I thought, okay, whatever, I'm going to do it myself. And so I started Girls Talk just with actually I call them my work wives from the Brokerage, Rosa and Anu. I just managed to get a space, and I think it was the Design Museum, or the London Design Museum, which was like down the road from our offices. I managed to get some senior women who had been some of our corporate partners to come and talk to a group of secondary school kids. And I just went during my lunchtime and just got some stuff from Waitrose in a trolley with Rosa and Anu, and we took it up there.
This is the beginning of Girls Talk?
Yeah, literally. And
what year is this?
This was 2013, it's 10 years ago.
Right.
And to this day, Rosa always messages me and she says custard creams, because I was debating. Custard creams were quite expensive. They were about like 30p per packet. But like, I think digestives were about like 10p or something at that time. And I was like, oh, should I get custard creams? That was like, getting custard creams was like, I was going all out.
It was a critical moment.
Yeah,
splashing out 30p.
Yeah. So she always texts me and says, custard creams, I'm so proud of you. So we started out, like just with just a few biscuits and, you know, like 20p orange juice from Waitrose. And I just wanted to kind of just host something for the schoolgirls. So we started out doing quarterly events, and then we just grew and grew and grew, managed to get more corporate partners to host us. And then we started actually my events, because the name Girls Talk was, I really wanted to focus on young girls. And then we started getting these, no issue, but we started getting 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds coming along. And they're saying, look, I know I'm not this age group, but I really need the inspiration. Do you mind if I come? And then it just started to get more older in terms of our demographic. And so I then sort of focused it now on a very wider age group, so like 18 to 35 plus. And then we kind of branched out into the workplace, supporting women in the workplace. So it's grown a lot, since 10 years ago.
And so what are the sort of milestones? How does it grow from there? What are the milestones of the Girls Talk journey from there?
Yeah, so from custard creams, we went to, in-house catering. But essentially what happened was, at one of my events, there was the chair of the O2 Women's Network. She was in the audience. And she said to me, we've got a real big problem of getting women in tech. And I know the chair of the Ericsson's Women's Network, BT, and also Vodafone. Could you help us? Because you work at the Brokerage, you know how to design programs. Could you help us design a program to get more women? And I thought, this is what I do in my day job. I can just do it for you. And so that was like my first paid contract as a side hustle. And so I just put the program together.
What year is this?
This was 2015.
Okay, so it took 2 years to get the first paid contract.
Yes, I was doing it for free, so I was paying it out of my own money.
Wow. You're buying the custard creams
buying the custard creams. Eventually, companies said, "Okay, we'll give you some food." When we kind of got better corporate hosts.
So how much were you spending of your own money every year to do it? By this
Loads, and this is what people don't realize, because sometimes they see the end result, you enjoying yourself and maybe having a bit of soft life, but they don't see that I was literally I was a broke professional living in London at those times. I was on £27,000 a year, and in London, and I was living in Streatham Hill. My landlord had kept increasing my rent. And I had my student loan to pay off. I didn't have that much, and I was just pouring in whatever I could, into Girls Talk, doing the food, venue hires, and then just doing it for free. It's outside of work. I would just organize all the events, approach people, on a very for London, a very low salary. So, but I was just so passionate about it. So I was always running up credit cards, always in debt, always broke, basically.
So you're spending money on credit cards to fund this idea to help people.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I think because I just was so passionate. So I knew that eventually I'd figure out some form of income, but I just felt like I just enjoyed it so much, and I felt like this is what I'm meant to be doing.
I think it's a theme that we hear a lot from founders.
Yeah.
It's just by pushing on, you will make it happen. Because it's for those that don't stop, reap the reward. And if you do not stop, the law of momentum, the law of attraction will mean that it will happen for you.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
So how does it keep? So it's 2 years' time, you get your first paid contract, and then what's next in the Girls Talk journey?
Yeah, so first paid contract was a program called Step Into STEM with the 4 telcos, and then we're the 4 biggest telcos in the UK. And that ended up winning a European Diversity Award for Best Project. So it became an award-winning program, and we had 200 girls in UK have mentors, and they ended up now working in some of the companies. So some of our girls now work at BT and Vodafone, etc. So it was really successful.
STEM, could you break down what STEM is?
Sorry, yes, STEM is science, technology, engineering and maths. Yeah, so it was called Step Into STEM.
And what are you thinking, because you've just spent a couple of years working like crazy, spending your own money, and now suddenly you're getting some money to do it, and there's these big companies involved, and you're helping people, and you want an award. What are you feeling at this point?
Well, interestingly, I was getting money, but I was charging them peanuts, first of all. So the lesson I learned was, after a few years, I've just said to them, I just realised that I've been undercharging you. So I had developed my business model, and then I actually went part-time at the brokerage. And so I still did it as a side hustle until very much recently, proper full-time. But I just started doing Step Into STEM, and then I started scaling our events, partnering a bit more with bigger name corporates, and just figuring out the business model and things like that as well. So growing the community, because I would do our social media, I would do everything, program management, everything. Yeah, and just kind of growing Step Into STEM. And then I started Black Girls Tech Summit 2019 as well. And that's when I kind of started to piece together how you can have bigger scale events. So that's how I grew.
And what were some of the things that you learned in scaling up events?
You know what? I think you have to run your own race, and you have to make sure that, because I'd set up Girls Talk and went into so much debt before, I thought I'm not going to compromise the financials for how everything looks. So some people, they'll deliver this massive event, and it's just, at the most flashiest venue, and they've got the champagne and all this booze and lovely food. They've spent, 20K to get Stephen Bartlett to speak for 10 minutes, and then they're doing it in the minus. Right. So I have learned that to be resourceful and think, okay, what is it that I want to do? I want people to leave here inspired and have a really good event, but make sure that we still are able to make a profit. So that's what I've learned. I've learned how to make sure that when you're running events and programs, that it's actually there's a business, you've got your business case and the finances add up. It's not just about the aesthetics. I always think, what is your intention? What is the purpose? As long as people are fed, they've had a drink, they've been inspired, make sure you do that at the bare minimum, because don't get caught up in the glitz and glam. Like I used to see lots of other kind of now women's events, and they've got this flashiest this and flashiest that, but you have to just do things at your own pace and do what you can do, and don't kind of look at competition, because that way you kind of start getting in your own a different world, and you're not doing things how you're supposed to. Yeah.
So you spend a few years working at a series of banks and financial institutions.
Yep.
And it was during this time that you had some toxic bosses.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was one where you just... tell us what happened. It was just too much, right? What was the scenario?
I'm like, which one? Which one?
What was going on? What kind of things were happening?
Okay, so there was a couple of places actually. Well, I would say I had 3 bosses who were just terrible. One was a man, but he was, I would say, anti-black. To be nice, anti-black, very anti-black.
And you would know what that meant because you lived in areas around the NF.
So I recognize this guy is anti-black, and he ended up being my boss. So I was hired before he started. So if he had started, so we were both new. If he had started, he would never have hired me. Absolutely not. So he's just thinking, this who is she?
And what era are we talking? This is what roughly dates?
This is 2019. And I was on a contract there, and I just left it early, and then I went to work somewhere else. But that was a very toxic environment. And even before that, I'd been in a toxic environment with 2. So the 2 toxic bosses that I've had have been female, sadly. And it was a couple of things. So I'd always been quite upfront about my side hustle, so Girls Talk. So I set up Girls Talk, and I was still working full time. I was actually working for a charity at the time, and then I kind of moved back into like without, I don't want to sort of say too much so that I put people in.
No.
They kind of, but I'd kind of then gone into like a different sector, right? So I'd still been doing Girls Talk, and Girls Talk was a side hustle. I was happy doing it as a side hustle. I was transparent with where I was working, and my boss at the time that this is what I was doing. She was fine with it. However, I started to get press. So I started to get Evening Standard. So imagine like you're someone's line manager, and you open up Evening Standard, and there's this picture of them as the top 8 influential people in like London, and you've got Stormzy, me, and all with other people. She was quite threatened. I think she was quite threatened, and also couldn't work out, well, how are you doing your job? I was doing my job really, really well, and a side hustle really, really well. She just could not understand it. And so there was a lot of trying to put my team members against me when I first started. So I had 2 bosses at this particular place. The boss was fine, but the second boss had been telling lies about me to the big boss. And then she started to manipulate my team members. So she would say to them, if Vanessa asks you to do something, because I was a manager at the time, don't do it. So I'd say, can you help me with this? Because this would be their role. They would just say no. She was sabotaging. Everyone else was allowed to work from home 1 day a week. I wasn't. I had to be in.
So she's always trying to force you out?
Yeah, trying to force me out. Right. And then it wasn't just me. It was then 2 other managers she was bullying as well, like just manipulation, gaslighting, making you feel like you don't know what you're doing, that you're not doing a good job, to the point of one of my other colleagues still to this day is going through a lot of mental health issues because of that particular person. I just said, I'm not going to have it. So it was that kind of toxic traits. And where I was working, another boss as well, overworking, to the point of just overwhelm, and then just making you feel like everything that you do is not good enough. So I would draft something, it's not good enough, do it again, and just do it again and again and again, and you just feel then quite insecure. And again, another colleague of mine, they had started and they became so very, 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 very ill. And then I started and I became really, really ill. I ended up in A&E.
Why?
Because of the stress of like working with this person.
So how did you wind up in A&E?
So I had I don't know what you call the kind of proper term for it, but it was the symptoms of a mini stroke. So like my left hand side. So I remember I was working and my boss was harassing me again on like Teams. And then all of a sudden I was like, my left side just went numb. And I just said to her, my left side has just gone numb. Like, I'll message you back later. And then I thought, okay, this is really weird. No feeling on my left-hand side. Then I went to the mirror and then my face just went droopy. So that was a sign, obviously, of a stroke. Yeah. So then I was like just messaging, I messaged one of my colleagues as well saying, this is what's happened. And she was like, you need to call an ambulance. So I called actually 111 because I thought, let me just call 111 and they might say, oh, it's nothing, you know. And then they were like, okay, so what's happening? Left side is gone. And then I said, my face is droopy. And they said, try and smile. And then I was smiling and it was like, you know, it was just very droopy on one side. And they said, you need to we're calling an ambulance. So they called an ambulance for me.
And 111 is the non-emergency line.
Exactly.
Helpline.
And they were like, we're calling an ambulance for you. So then it wasn't like a full stroke, but it was like, it's like a terrible, like stressful migraine / like mini
hemiplegic migraine.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was a big wake up call. And then I stayed there for maybe another year.
Another year?
Yeah, exactly. I should have.
The place basically put you in a stroke.
Yeah.
And you stayed
there.
Why? Why?
Oh, you know what? It was the time during the pandemic.
Okay.
So obviously, you're scared of losing your job. This is like the world shut down. I don't know what's going to happen. I've got a mortgage. I just bought my flat. So I was like, I need a job.
You need that money coming in to pay the mortgage, to just live.
Exactly. Yeah. So I felt like I had to stay. If I went through this now, I would have left. After that, I would have said, I'm out. But, you know, that was where I was. That was before I'd done like therapy. So I kind of, after that experience, I then went to therapy. And then after a year of therapy, I just handed in my notice, and just left,
Did you put in any kind of strategies to working in that environment after you'd experienced such a experience that you did?
Do you know what was interesting? I had a toxic boss, but I also had 2 colleagues who were just bullies themselves. It's just so mad when you think about it, because they were like blockers. I think they saw me as a new girl, and there was this one lady who was just absolutely evil. Like everything she just did not want to help me at all and saw me as competition. And she was quite open. She said, I see everyone as competition. So again, it was just crazy. But strategies is, I found at least one person on my team. She actually had a full stroke 6 weeks before mine. And so, she was really, really ill, but we bonded. So I think my strategy was like just finding someone on my team who I was like, I'm not crazy. No, like you're not. Like we're both going through this, and we were just each other's support system. Yeah, that was my strategy.
What advice would you have? Someone's listening to this and like, oh man, I'm going through this now. I've got a toxic boss. What would you say to them?
Raise a grievance.
What does that mean?
So report them to HR, and then it's called raising a grievance. It's a formal process of investigation. I didn't need to at one of the places. The other place I didn't, and I regret it. But my last place before I left to focus on Girls Talk full time, my colleague who had the stroke, she had done a grievance. So I just said, HR said to me, there's no point, just be a witness for this one, and I did. So I would say, do the formal process. It's so important, because eventually the person will get pushed out. And then the second thing is leave. Like within 2 weeks of me starting at that place, I knew it wasn't the place for me.
And you spent how long there?
And I stayed there like 18 plus months, nearly 2 years.
And had a mini stroke.
And almost died. Like, I could have died and become paralyzed, you know?
From the stress.
Yeah, from the stress. And so I would just say leave.
But if someone's like, yeah, but I can't, I've got a mortgage just like you, I've got things to pay, got children to look after.
Make the plan to leave. So obviously you can't say, right, I'm going tomorrow. But I didn't like start looking for roles. So I would say, like, make your plans to leave, like talk to recruiters, apply for something, apply for anything, just to get out there. Just make sure like your bills are paid, and leave. Yeah, but I didn't. I was kind of, and what was crazy is I could have just left and focused on my business, but I was scared. My business was doing well. I could have just, I could have sustained myself, but I was scared. So I'd say.
And just talk about that. Where was the business at this point?
It was doing really well. So, but I kind of said that I would only leave my job if I was turning over double my salary. And at that time, it was kind of creeping up to at least the same. But it got so bad, I just said, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to just quit my job and I'm going to go for it. And literally within that month, so a week after I handed in my notice, I got a contract that took me to double.
Excellent.
So you just have to just take the first step, and like the universe meets you. And then I was like on my way, and I haven't looked back in 2 years. Yeah.
Lesson?
So many lessons.
So many lessons there. So many lessons. I think one of the key ones is leave those toxic environments. Yeah. Don't waste your time there. Don't waste your life force in those environments. Because this is the thing I say to a lot of people that I know when they're going through a stressful situation at work. Say, well, if you were to drop dead tomorrow, there'd be slight mourning, and then they'd be like, right, who else can we get to fill that seat? Because it's an organisation, especially if it's a corporate organisation, it's about having people in roles for what they need to like deliver on.
Exactly.
So I think that's the first one. And the second one, take the leap. Take the leap. If there's something that you really believe that you should be doing in the world, take that leap. And as you said, the universe will meet you. The universe will catch you in the air.
Yes, agree, definitely.
Going to making a positive change in people's lives and positive experiences. You do leave, you go full time into Girls Talk.
Yeah.
Is it those experiences of, at school, facing racism and being bullied and going through an abusive relationship that has driven you to do what you do with Girls Talk?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think especially with Girls Talk, I just felt this desire that I wanted to help young girls. And I think it's because I was that young girl who didn't have any role models or anyone to talk to. I didn't have these safe spaces. So I think that's what really was the underlying kind of motivation. I wanted to make sure that young girls had what I didn't have. Yeah, and also women. Like, I'm really passionate about, because I've been through so much as a woman, I want to make sure that I can make a difference and just help women have more confidence. When you have more confidence, not only everything about your life is going to be better, like socially, economically, you're just going to thrive. And so that's where my driver comes from. Yeah.
What has happened since going full time? I mean, it's a lot of pressure running your own business. How has that impacted you? What have you experienced, running your own business and going full time? There's no safety net of the salary coming in every month. Yeah.
I mean, if you follow me on Instagram and my stories, I do give people the reality. I always say entrepreneurship is the bin and it's hell, right? It is hell. Don't do it if you don't have to. I had enough of toxic workplaces that I have no choice. It has to work. But if I can just give anyone advice, stay in employment for as long as possible. This journey is hard. It's not glamorous. It's not fun. You don't switch off. So even when I'm on holiday, if something is going wrong, your team, this is their job. They don't care. They're clocking off at 6 or 5 as they should. You have to deal with this. So even this weekend, I'm working because we have to do, we have to firefight some things. So you work weekends, your holidays, you won't really be able to switch off. You're going to hear a lot of no's. I was not prepared. I thought, well, I'm doing amazing stuff. Like, we've got this great business. We're doing amazing work. Everyone is going to want to work with me. No, you have to really keep going despite the so many no's. There are going to be so many naysayers, so many people who don't believe in you. You have to motivate yourself. And I feel like entrepreneurship really makes you like dig deep into places that you never knew you could. It's interesting because obviously I've been through a very difficult journey my whole life. So I feel like it's kind of prepared me a little bit for this, but not really. Some things I'm still like, no, this is some hard stuff. But you just have to be your own cheerleader, like motivate yourself and just keep going. And I read something or heard a quote that just said the only difference between those who succeed and those who don't is that those who do, they never gave up. So you're on this journey of you cannot give up. You can scale back, you can pivot, you can, regroup, strategize, but just don't give up. Yeah.
Powerful message. What do you think you could do differently so that when you do go on holiday, to get the important rest, to recharge the batteries, to give all that fire when you come back? What could you do differently to get that time to recharge properly?
You know what? I have to say I am my own worst enemy, because I recently, I don't know if it's recent when this episode comes back, but actually my last holiday would have been Ibiza. And
what kind of Ibiza holiday?
It
Parties or the
it was
north?
The mountain. So my friend, it was her 40th, so she'd booked this really nice villa in the mountains, and we'd done yoga, and there was some drinking, but it was very much yoga and boating and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I only was away for 5 days. I really needed a break, and my team were like, "We've got this. Just don't look at the Slack. We won't be messaging you. Have a break." Of course, I was in the Slack just to check what's going on.
Why are you doing that when you're away?
It's terrible. And I don't know. I think for me, I have anxiety. So I have been diagnosed with anxiety, and that's where it comes from. I think it's that angst of, what if something goes wrong? I'm wanting to control and just wanting to check in and just thinking, because my company, I guess, is my baby. So if I had left my kid, you know how some mums, and you're babysitting their kid and the mums will be like, "Can you send me a picture? Like, how is he or she doing?" I'm like that. So I can't, you feel like I've left my baby with babysitters. I need to just check in on them. And it's psychological. But to be fair, I only checked the Slack maybe once or twice. So I'm getting better.
So I'm going to ask the question again. What could you do differently?
What I would do, I would turn off Slack off my phone, because I left my laptop, which was great. But I had my phone, has Slack, emails. What I should have done is delete the Gmail and Slack. I really should have done that. So I would do that next time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. That's the way to do it. You just have to go full ball. Last time I was away, there was just really bad signal, like awfully bad. You had to go to the clubhouse to get signal. So it's just like, there's nothing I can do. My partner was like, "You're not on your phone." I was like, "No, it doesn't work. There's nothing I can do." And it's a freedom. We forget that freedom.
It's true. But me, I'll be at the clubhouse. I'll be like trying to get service. That is one of the areas I have to work on. I'm not great with, and I have to be transparent with, the whole wellness work-life balance. I'm terrible at it, but I do have a holiday. I think when this comes out, I should be in South Africa. I go there every December to see my family for 2 weeks. I'm literally offline. I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Well, we need to time. I feel like we're going to make this worse. We need to time the release of the episode so you're not there, because I don't want you to be going, "Oh, I wonder how it's doing. Is it out? No. Let me share it on social."
Just get on YouTube quickly.
The 4th of December is when I go.
Okay, we've got to come out before then. Before the 4th of September. Well, the audience will know if we succeeded or not in doing that.
Do you feel part of that anxiety could be that you have such a duty of care to the women that are part of the network?
The anxiety comes from that. It's what we're doing is dealing with people's lives. And I just feel like this is my vocation. It doesn't feel like work to me, which is a bit scary. It's hard, but it doesn't feel like work. So when I'm checking my Slack, it doesn't feel like I'm working. So you're right. It's the kind of seriousness of what we're doing. Yeah.
What was it that you were noticing about your anxiety? What were the symptoms? What were you doing? What were your behaviours that led you to you make the decision eventually to go and see a doctor, but what was happening before that?
So all of the, I guess, the abuse and years I had been abused, it was about maybe 10 years, not told anybody, not gone to therapy for it. And so it started to resurface into like depression. So I actually was diagnosed with anxiety and depression.
Wow, not just one. Both.
Yeah, so
Wow.
both when I was about 28, 29. And I think it was just because I hadn't told anybody and I just wasn't dealing with it. So I think it was just feeding, the signs of, and it's quite sad because my doctor at the time was so lovely, but he passed away recently. It's really, really sad. But I booked an appointment to speak with him and I was like, I'm just not feeling myself. And he was like, well, tell me how you're feeling. And I said, he said, do you feel like helplessness? And I was like, yes. And he was just writing down. And then I just felt like lack of energy, insomnia, nervousness, like just stomach cramps, headaches, all of these things. And he was just listening to me and he said, I think you've got depression and anxiety. And he was the first person that actually kind of just helped me put it into words. And I just felt, it just felt like I wasn't myself. And I'd been feeling like this for a long time, but I didn't know what it was. I thought, maybe I'm just tired. I've got my side hustle and my business. And then it was my doctor who said, actually, no, you've got anxiety and depression. And then suggested I go for CBT therapy. Yeah.
Wow. So is that if someone's listening and like, yeah, I'm feeling lethargic, I'm getting up late, I'm tired all the time. Yeah. Those are the kind of things that are going on.
Yeah. Like getting up. I mean, I had to obviously get up for work, but then when I was working part-time and on my days for my business, like I would be getting up at like 9, 10. And then I'm just like, that's not really normal. Like, what's going on there? So you're saying, like feeling tired, waking up late, not sleeping. All of those signs are signs that something is not right. That's not normal for you to feel like helplessness. Or, you like, there's no way out. You just feel like despair. That's not normal. And so the first thing is, if you have a good GP, I was so lucky that my GP was good. Not everyone's GP is great. So there are tools that you can kind of try and sort of you can self-diagnose and then try and get therapy as well. That helps, but definitely do something about it. Yeah.
Brilliant. And how are you now? Has it progressed, improved since then?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I didn't realize is I've gone through a lot of trauma. So sometimes that it shows up in like PTSD a little bit. I do have moments where I do get down about mainly the abuse, and that's depression is about the past. Right. So I do struggle with it from time to time. Sometimes it does come in ebbs and flows, and it's me about knowing the signs and I'm thinking, okay, right, I need to maybe go back into therapy, or I need to sort of look at my toolbox.
Yeah, talk to us about that. What are your approaches when you start to notice, you're going in a downwards spiral? Yeah. What works for you? What's in your toolbox?
First of all, I just look at my diary and I'm like, what can come out? So saying no, what can come out, giving myself a bit more space. And then the second thing is doing things. So therapy is a really great tool. So I have been in therapy, got a therapist. So having that 1 hour a week where you can kind of vent. But I think also in your toolbox is different things that help you get to a better place. If I'm feeling low, I make sure, okay, I have like a massage. Reiki is really good. Sound baths have been really helpful to me, like meditating. But actually sleep. So sometimes I'm quite sociable, so I like hanging out with like my friends and stuff. But sometimes what I do is just like say, actually this weekend I'm just going to sleep and rest. And that's healing for myself. If I feel like I'm feeling a bit low, that's what I do to like recharge myself and just spend time. Like I'll go to my mum's and that's like my recharge. So I think it's just identifying things that you have in your, I guess, spiritual toolbox that help like rejuvenate you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, saying no is so powerful, isn't it? Yeah. Because most people do need quite a lot of energy to be around people and to cultivate friendships. It's high energy. People may be expecting like a lot from you, even just by your presence. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, guys, I'll catch you next month. Just this like 2 days I've got here, I'm just gonna rest.
It's true. And I think it's because I'm getting older as well. So my energy, I mean, I'm not old, but I can feel it now. I'm at that age where my bones are hurting a little bit more, like, and I'm starting to actually push back. Like, even, you know, with my team have seen me change. Like, I'm actually saying, do you know what, guys, this can wait until tomorrow. Whereas before I would do all-nighters. So now I just think, is it really urgent? Is the business going to crumble? If it's no, then that can wait. So I kind of push things back a bit. And you have to, looking after your mental health is about prioritization. Like I reprioritize all the time. Like, what is important and what can wait? And 90% of things can wait. I'm not a doctor, sadly, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a firefighter. I'm not in anything where people's lives are in danger. Like, the client can wait for their brief or whatever. Everything can wait. Yeah.
And so now, in the present time, what's your view on relationships? What's your experience with it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a joke, to be honest. It's a joke, yeah. And I think I don't know what is in this atmosphere. Do you know what I say to my nieces? They're in their 20s. And I say the mistake I made was I didn't look for my husband then. And it's controversial because I was chasing education and career. And there has been a lot of debate recently about this, but I always say to these young girls, if you know that you want to get married, find your husband in your 20s. You don't have to marry him in your 20s, but at least get with him. Because a lot of my friends who were like in happy marriages, they found their husbands in their 20s. Dating in your 30s it ain't great. Like, and I think people need to be real. You know, I grew up in the Sex and the City. It was glamorized, you know. It's not. It's really not. Like, I'm not on the dating apps. Like, seeing someone's horrible Hinge profile pictures or
voice notes.
Yeah, or voice notes now. Like, it's just the pits. Like, dating is the pits, and it's much harder when you are a woman, where some men can get intimidated. So I intimidate a lot of men. I've been told I have what they call big energy. I hope I can say that word, but I've been told that, or BD, big energy, BDE, and I can be quite alpha and quite strong. And obviously, if you search my name and you Google me, that can be intimidating. So sometimes now when I date, I actually use my Zimbabwean name, which is Chiedza. So I just put Chiedza in my surname. So like, no guys know anything about me. So they can't get intimidated. They just get to know like who I am, because they can get intimidated if you're like, you know, when you were reading out those things to some guys, it's like, whoa, this is way too much. And I've had it in the past where some guys can get insecure, they can get a bit jealous. And so, yeah, that's the challenge. You've got to find someone who has their own thing, or is very, very secure in themselves as a man, that they're not going to resent you because you've got to fly out here to do a speaking engagement, or you're flying out here for work and they're left alone, or you can't cook them a 3-course meal. And when they come back home, that was one of my last serious relationships. My partner would complain to his mum. He'd say, Vanessa's always on her laptop and she's not cooking for me, and there's no food in the house.
And what do you think when you hear that?
Well, like, you're going to pay my bills. Because if you're going to pay my bills, I will cook you a 5-course meal. I will even make you a homemade cocktail when you walk through that door if my bills are getting paid. If you're not paying my bills, how am I going to... I've got to work to pay my bills. So it's just one of those things. Yeah.
We need to play that Destiny's Child track or Beyonce track in the background.
If you can pay my bills, I will happily do that. And I said that to him. I was like, we got bills to pay. If you know, we were in our 20s, and I was like, you know what, we're building. So I don't have anything against you that you can't pay my bills, but I have to pay my bills. So I have to work.
I think you'd maybe do that for a day or two, and then you'd be hungry to get out there and change the world. Yeah. So
I think so. I don't think you're right. I think, but the thing is, I would do it. I would do it in maybe a different way. Like, maybe I might be a philanthropist or something. So you're right. I would still need to do something to like make good in the world. Yeah, I couldn't just sit at home. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think there are amazing housewives, but I think for me, like you said, I have that fire to like make a difference. Yeah, you're right.
What does work then in your 30s dating? What have you found that does work and you should do more of?
I think travel. My dating life pops when I leave the United Kingdom. As soon as I get on that plane, guys are just drawn to me. Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like my dating life works better. So traveling into different environments where some men aren't intimidated, or it's a bit more of I think in the UK, we're a bit more reserved. But internationally, I think my dating life works better. So I think dating your 30s, travel, like get out there. Don't just think, your partner's going to be like where you're based. They could be in another country. So I feel like in your 30s, travel and just meet different types of people. And I think that's where you'll find your person.
Yeah, you do. When you travel, you meet a lot of interesting people.
Exactly. Yeah. And people there's just a different vibe, or you're bringing a different energy.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like new to the environment and you stand out a bit more. And people are like, oh, she's not from here. Let me go and talk to her or him or they. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of amazing things, we get onto your latest venture.
Oh gosh, yes.
The Hill.
The Hill.
Yes.
Tell us about it. You give us a brief summary at the start, but where did the initial idea come from?
So I was thinking, I guess, in terms of just like legacy a lot, thinking, okay, I have a service-based business. And as I mentioned to you, getting a bit older, bones are hurting. It's very physically intense running events and programs. It's very much like physical. And so I was thinking, okay, like how can I leverage tech to like make a bigger impact, scale, and really take the work that I'm doing to a different level that enables me to impact the hundreds of thousands and millions, right? And so that's where the Hill came in. So we're leveraging tech to enable companies to recruit female talent like in the thousands, tens of thousands. And eventually, like our goal is to connect 1 million women to jobs in the next couple of years. And so it's an app on mobile, so iOS and Android. And if you're a company, we can save you 9 to 8% on costs to hire female talent.
98%.
Yeah, 98% on cost. So companies pay a SaaS model. They pay an annual subscription. We don't charge recruiters fees. They can advertise as many jobs as they can. If they hire a female, there's no costs to them. So we don't charge commission. And then we save them time. So we cut hiring time by 50%. So it's almost like a Bumble for the workplace for females. So the idea is companies will have a page, females have a page, and companies make the first move. So whenever you look at someone's profile, there's a button that says invite to opportunity, and you can invite them to apply for a role that you've got live on your company page. And then you can schedule an instant one-to-one meeting, which will then be a video call on Zoom or Teams, and get to know them as a candidate. So that's what we're doing. And so it's really exciting because the scale of this type of business is huge. It's infinite because you can be a woman in anywhere in the world, in any sector, at any experience level. So you could be at university right through to a senior exec and you can get a job. And so the companies that we've got on our waiting list before launch are, Amazon, Visa, Snapchat, Zalando, who are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, tech company in Germany.
Wow.
We've got BT, Vodafone and Virgin Media on there as well. So we've got a lot of companies that are on the waiting list before launch to come on. And we've got nearly 10,000 women who we've got all they're on our database and they're waiting to be migrated. So it's been really well received. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
What do you think has been one of the key things that you've done to get these amazing companies, involved, so people can learn from, the success you've had?
I didn't realize that now the number one area that people need to focus on if you want to survive as an entrepreneur is community building. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing for the past years. I have built an engaged community. So when we have an event, they show up. Our events always sell out. We're oversubscribed. And so they've come with me to this app because they trust us. So companies are saying, actually, Girls Talk, they've built this community for 10 years they trust our brand, they know we deliver. And that's been the key to why we've got these companies on the wait list, because they know our community are engaged and we're passionate. Some people just see pound signs or dollar signs. They're like, I want to build this app to make money. But we've been in this because we're purpose-led. And so we're a purpose-led business. And so we are always community first.
Lesson from that?
Lesson from that, I think, is the trust of brand. And by doing something from the right place, people will be invested. You know, they'll trust you, they'll follow you, they'll tell their friends and their family about what you're doing. And I think it's a great example with you having such a big waiting list for the app of all the good work you've done up to this point.
What has been your journey raising investment? How would you describe that process, and what have you been up against?
Yeah, surely, like, you've got an amazing product, you're serving an amazing group of people in the world. It should be really easy to get that investment.
It should. Investors should be flocking to me, right? That's not the case. So with Black women, we get 0.02% of VC investment.
0.02?
percent of VC investment. Women get 2% of investment of VC, and that's from venture capitalists. So it's been, and to get investment, not every business will get it. So even if I was a white male, I'd still be, the odds would be stacked against me. So as a Black woman, I am doing the impossible. It's an impossible journey, but I am very resilient. It's been very, very challenging. I have decided to raise, and I guess the worst economic crisis in the last few years. Not the best time, but it's been challenging. I've had investors say, excuse me, I need to talk business to somebody else. I've had them just say, working with girls, like, what is this? It's just nonsense. They don't get it.
Wow. This is 2023 now.
Exactly.
This is not like
They're
10, 20 years ago.
Women, please give me health tech, climate tech, space tech, anything other than your tech. So it's difficult when you've got a business that's like in ESG, or, you know, we're kind of like in HR tech. It's not as sexy as if I said I want to go to space in a week. I'm telling you, I would get millions. Ridiculous. But it's more sexy sounding, right? Like, she wants to go to space in a week. Give her the money that she can do it, even though it's crazy. Have a viable business. That's kind of boring, but it works. It's a good business. Nah. So I think the whole investment space, it is very much, there's a bandwagon, and investors are kind of jumping on what's the sexy thing. So we're up against climate tech, which is a big thing. Agri-tech is a new thing, and health tech is a new thing. So we're up against those kind of businesses. So you have to really make yourself stand out and really sell the business case as a Black woman founder. But it's difficult because you have to, and they look at my team. So I've had to be conscious that I do have to have a diverse team. I've got to have men in there. I've got to have a white man in there. Otherwise, they're just not going to even give you the time of day. It's so much underlying barriers and underlying, I guess, biases as well. For Black female founders, it's really, really, really tough. It's not been easy.
For someone going on that journey, about to maybe going through it, what have you learned going through this process that maybe if you were to go back, you would maybe do differently?
I would have started much earlier. And I would only raise if you have to. So I did not want to raise investment. I just never thought it was for me. And then that kind of derailed me a little bit because I wasn't making the right connections. I just thought, I don't need to talk to investors early on in my startup journey because I don't want to raise investment. So I would say just start early on. As soon as you start in business, you need to start at least building relationships with investors so that when you are ready, it's easier. I kind of started having no relationship and needing the money, which is the worst time to invest. And then I guess the most important thing is only raise if you have to, because you're giving away equity. And if you get in with the wrong investors who are a pain in the ass, it can really cause you challenges and problems. So try and hold on to as much equity as possible and think, how can I build this business, get it to as best a place as you can before you need to raise. Like, don't just raise because you've read in TechCrunch that this person raised millions of dollars and pounds. Most of these people will go bust. So if you can just have a business that makes profit, that is good, like focus on that. I'm raising investment because I want to scale and I want to impact millions of women. In order for me to do that before I'm 90, I need to raise, because I can't be doing this until I'm 90 years old. I could bootstrap until then, but I'm raising investment to scale so I can get there quicker. Yeah.
Well, you've achieved an incredible amount in your life. What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of like the impact and the legacy. And I feel that even the Hill app, I feel like this is going to be like my biggest legacy because it's something tangible and just something that can be used to impact so many. So I think I'm really proud of the women that I've helped get jobs. I love it when I get an email or a LinkedIn or a message to say, I got a job because I went to your event or I was on your program. Even my mum gets messages from people who add her and say, I saw you got the same name as Vanessa. She's changed my life. And I just want to know anyone that's got the same surname as her.
Wow.
She likes that because they confuse her. If they confuse her, they ask her, are you her sister or her cousin? So she's loving it. But she gets that. So
How
that's
often
really
do people reach out?
A lot. to my mum. And so but they don't know that she's my mum. So they're just like, oh, you got the same surname as her. Like, she's changed my life so much. Like, can I just add you? So I feel like that is I'm most proud of, like, changing women's lives. Yeah.
When you say impact, like, how much impact have you had?
I mean, we've got a community. So we've got like 56,000 women. Every year we have thousands come to our events on our program. So we like physically engage thousands every year. So it's in the thousands, like personal face to face, which is it's a lot. Like and I always ask for forgiveness because we literally see thousands of women at our events, and sometimes somebody will say, "Oh, Vanessa, do you remember me? Like, do you know me?" And I'm like, "No, I'm really sorry." And it's not because I'm rude, because literally we have thousands that we see every year. So sometimes it can get hard to actually make it tangible. But there's just a lot of impact there that we've had.
I guess when you get those messages, it is tangible.
It's real. They're a real person.
They're
getting
exactly. these roles. And that's just part of, changing so many people's lives. You're changing tens of thousands of lives, and people coming into the community. That's part and parcel of it, which is actually a very good thing. And I think it's also the knock-on effect. Like, every single person that gets a job because of Girls Talk, that can then inspire the next generation and friends, family. Yeah. And so it's that knock-on effect is huge. So I think, just amazing that what you've done to so many people's lives.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It can get overwhelming. So I try not to think about it. I'm just like, let me just continue. I'm sure when I kind of end my journey here, I definitely will like reflect back, but it can get a bit overwhelming. And so I just try and focus on, the mission. Yeah.
Well, I'll if I can speak for many people, I guess you've changed your life. I'm sure many of them just appreciate what you do massively. And when they hear that, they probably think, no, Vanessa, you should be proud and put some energy into the good vibes it brings from changing people's lives. But equally understand, like, you're just hungry to do more, which is very inspiring.
Yeah. A single candle that can light 1,000 more.
A nice way to put it, yeah.
Well, that is the story of how you became founder and CEO of Girls Talk and The Hill. Incredible a story, and inspiring one, as I said. And I think people can just learn from your determination. And you've never let anything stop you. You've never let anything get you down for a long time. You've probably had moments where you're just like, oh man, maybe I can't do this, but you just every single time get back up and go out there and change the world, and we'll continue to do that. I've got no doubt about that.
No doubt at all.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this chat. It was really good. So thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, we come to the final part.
Off with a final poem.
Oh, I love the poems. Can't wait.
And I created this live as we were going along. 56,000 women helped and counting. If you would like to be involved, you should know what to do. It was at Brunel University where her entrepreneurial passions grew, combining business with social purpose around the right company. Who knows where it could lead? And if you're finding yourself in a toxic environment, your best plan is to just get up and leave. After seeing an apathy for black women moving into finance, a movement started from side hustle to allow those women to be seen. Approached by a senior, then creating a program, got the first contract, now catered for, no more custard creams.
Yes.
A duty of care.
I love that.
Not finished.
I had to put that in, I had to.
Not finished yet. Still going.
A duty of care for thousands of lives can make it hard to get a real and true break. Now I'll see you up on the hill where the girls talk, and they will, with a collective power that I'm sure will make the earth shake.
Oh, that is amazing.
Right.
That was so good.
Thank you for joining us
Clap,
today.
clap, clap. Thank you. Love it.
And there we go.
Thank you.
Thank
that
you.
was so good. I love the poems. That's such a cool thing. Yeah. Oh, I love
Lots
that.
of people ask us to write it up, send it. They want to frame it.
Could you?
Yes,
Because that
yes,
is
I'll
just
get that over
like,
to you.
yeah, I love it. Love it.
do
Thank
that.
you.
All
That was fun.